Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting video of writing some screenplays or just learning screenplays with ChatGPT. Today we're going to be covering the very basics of crafting a story from scratch using GPT. We'll be delving into the realm of dude with a problem stories as we learn how to craft compelling log lines for our stories. And for those of you new to screenwriting, a log line is one or two sentences that encapsulates the essence of a story. Typically includes their protagonist, or your hero, the goal, the main conflict, and what's at stake. It's kind of like the DNA of your story, like the building blocks that you can kind of expand from and really kind of give life to your screenplay. But before we begin, let's recap real quick what a dude with a problem story is. It's one of the 10 types of stories that they are listed in the Save the Cat book that I mentioned in a previous video. It's a screenwriting structure where an ordinary person faces extraordinary circumstances. So for like a movie, Die Hard would be a perfect example of this. And the logline would go something like, when a group of terrorists takes an entire skyscraper hostage during a Christmas party, an off-duty New York cop must single-handedly rescue the hostages, which include his wife, and stop the terrorist plans. But we can break that down into its core elements. So we have the protagonist, or our hero, John McClane, who's an everyman, which is a kind of like archetype, NYPD detective. He's just a regular guy, albeit a cop, who finds himself in a terrifying situation that's well outside the scope of his normal beat. What's his goal? His goal is to reconcile with his estranged wife. At the start of the movie, that's what he's after. And he's going to her office Christmas party to do so. However, when he gets there, there's terrorists taking over the building, and his objective drastically changes. So his ordinary goal turns into something extraordinary. So now he has to stop the terrorists and save the hostages, which include his wife, and still save his marriage too. Or he wants to at least still save his marriage. So the antagonist, though, is going to be, that's our villain. And you can just have conflict here too. It doesn't necessarily, villains don't have to be like personified always, but but the antagonist for Die Hard is a charismatic terrorist named Hans Gruber, and he creates the primary conflict for McClane, which is a life or death struggle in essentially an office building turned war zone. And over the course of the movie, the transformation that McClane will go through, a man struggling with his marital problems to a bona fide action hero, right? And people laughed back in the day when they saw like Bruce Willis in the theater, like, oh, who's this? This guy's not an action star. But this kind of like birthed like a whole new kind of genre, some people say, of like action comedies and stuff like that. And a lot of people point back to Die Hard and like the elevator, or not the elevator, the ventilation scene.
Come out to the coast, we'll get together, have a few laughs.
And he's not just trying to fight the bad guys. He is trying to, he's fighting for the survival of his marriage. So there's like a juxtaposition of the two things. It's like a battle, and that's kind of what these Save the Cat style, or these just story structures, because Save the Cat is just picking up on different story structures. That's what these story structures kind of show, is that like we can start with very basic ideas, which is a dude with a problem, and then we can keep expanding, adding little elements, B stories, C stories, everything, until we get a full-fledged movie like Die Hard that they're still making them today. But you can boil it down to, it's a dude with a problem. So let's continue. Now we can create our own using, this is a format guide, right? So just real quick recap, we have our protagonist, the dude, his goal, solving a problem and finding something, the conflict, which is the problem itself, and finally the transformation, him becoming the hero. And Bruce Willis did all of this in Die Hard, and we can make our character do all of this as well. So keep these components in mind, because they're really the essence of any story, even beyond dude with a problem. You're always going to have a protagonist, a goal, an antagonist, or a conflict. And if you would want a transformation, there are certain like exceptions to the rule, like the Triumphant Fool is a type of story, and he never transforms. He never learns his lesson, but he still just somehow makes it through. He somehow makes it through his journey triumphant, but still as foolish as he began. So, and that's a pretty interesting kind of movie as well. But we're focusing on Dude with a Problem today. And if you want to go further into various, if anybody, out there wants to go into various other kinds of movies or anything like that, just drop a comment and let me know. And I could probably, help you out. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over to ChatGPT and we're gonna use it to help us brainstorm some unique options for each element of the logline that we can later expand into a full-fledged story. But we want to craft that logline first, and we can start building out from there. And so if you don't have an idea of your protagonist in mind, or if you're just sitting around with some writer's block and you want to just be like, okay, well, I kind of have an idea for a story, or I want to get writing at least, and maybe just get inspiration flowing, this might be a good way to do that. All right, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to use ChatGPT to just help us brainstorm. We'll start with the prompt. So the prompt I'm going to use just for this. Now, if you have a protagonist in mind or whatever, you can just skip this step, or, you can do this step and be like, for this kind of protagonist, give me some professions or something like that. Let's say you had like a noir kind of detective thing, but you want some like additional elements. You could be like, give me some additional character traits or whatever. But for now, as we're crafting the logline, we're just going to keep it very simple, because I don't even have the idea that we're necessarily going to be writing. This whole series, I want to take us from logline and we're just going to make a treatment. Then we'll start writing a story. And from there, we'll go. Hold on. All right. I keep getting interrupted, so hopefully I'm not making too many things. So, okay, we've got this. Generate a list of 10 diverse protagonist options, including different character types and professions. Okay, very simple. The building blocks of the first step of most stories, right, is going to be like, I got a hero. Or maybe you have an idea and you don't know who the hero is. It's just going to start throwing out, we're not going to use these names or anything. GPT-3 sometimes will just be a little easier. This is kind of, there's differences between 3 and 4. This is adding extra creative elements. So if you're in 3, it might be a little bit different, but don't be surprised if it doesn't have like names or anything like that. So let's see what we got here. A diverse range of character types and professions. An African-American cyberneticist with a passion for robotics and a dream to create the first truly sentient artificial intelligence. She is fearless, dedicated, and a little bit eccentric. A chef. We're just gonna get rid of this. I don't care. I wanted to fit into the dude with a problem story type. Can I get 10 more? And I don't need names. Just character, just protagonist details. Protag details. I mean, and you can modify this. You don't even need to use this prompt. If you see something that looks good, hey, boom. Or if it gives you an idea. Okay, an overworked emergency room doctor, that's pretty good. A young prodigy hacker. This is more what we're looking like. More what I wanted. A retired police detective, that's a hard-boiled cop, right? Dragged back into the field when an old nemesis resurfaces. That might be okay. Middle-aged housewife, talented athlete, school teacher, wannabe singer. There's all kinds of elements. So let's just go with a hard-boiled cop thing. So we're gonna go with 3. Let me see what the prompt that I kind of mapped these prompts out before. But yeah, so now what we need to do is we need to give them a goal. And so what we're gonna do is and we can just tell it like the number that we want as we're doing it this way. So we can be like, great, now let's generate a list of 10 unique and compelling objectives that would suit. 3, retired police detective. And I would take that out and then just type option 3. It's gonna know that we want to do a retired police detective story. And so it's gonna give us 10 options for things that could happen with this police detective. And just, I figured we'll do that because we're going along with Die Hard, right? But we can craft a totally different film from Die Hard. Because we're gonna change various story elements. We're not gonna have probably an ex-wife or anything like that. It's not gonna take place in a skyscraper, right? Because I've seen that before. I don't want to do that. Let me see. We got some solving an unfinished case. These are tropes, right? We're gonna be in the territory of tropes until we start expanding this, but a lot of stuff is just boils down to tropes anyways. So he can be solving an unfinished case, protecting his family, prove his innocence, uncover corruption. Serpico, a guy has to uncover corruption, protect his family, Lethal Weapon 2. Danny Glover's son, I think, is like starting to join a gang. That's very much he's protecting his family in that film, where like Lethal Weapon 1 is just like Mel Gibson's a bit of a loose cannon. So he's a dude with a problem, which is he's a loose cannon. And but I guess Lethal Weapon is one of the mixed ones because it's really a two-hander kind of thing, buddy cop film, which falls into a different category. But there's a lot. These will mix and match too, so don't get locked in too hard. Let's see. Reveal a political scandal, find his kidnapped partner, train a rookie. That's always a good one too. Like Showtime. The movie with Eddie Murphy and Robert De Niro is pretty good because it does something like this, but it kind of turns it on its head, and the guy's not even a cop at all. He's an actor who plays a cop. Pretty good. Watch it if you haven't seen it. And then redeem his reputation. So, okay, we're going to go with 10 on this one. We want a guy who's maybe his case, maybe something happened and like he took down a guy who got away, who got put away, but then through some technicality has gotten out of jail since our protagonist has retired, right? So next we'll generate a list of 10 antagonists or conflicts. So great. We'll go with option 10. Next, let's generate a list of 10 antagonists or conflicts for this story. Boom. Okay, and it's going to start giving us elements to this, because we want it to pertain to this. We could just sit here and be like, give me 10 of each of these different elements, and we could mix and match and throw darts at it. And that's even a fun way to kind of brainstorm ideas, which is kind of what we're doing here. We don't really know what this story is going to be yet, but we do know that we want to write, so far, a movie about a retired cop who now has to redeem his reputation. And so how's he going to redeem his reputation? Why does he have to redeem his reputation? A rising star in the legal world, bent on using the detective's tarnished reputation as a stepping stone for their own career. Maybe this guy's a corrupt, that's the next one too. A corrupt prosecutor, maybe it's a Departed thing where this prosecutor, maybe he's been, maybe his, dad or uncle or something was in the mob, and then he was like, keep out of the mob so that you can, become a lawyer, keep your reputation squeaky clean, and then you can get in there and you can help us out or whatever. And then right as this guy becomes like the DA or something like that, he can, manufacture some evidence that says, no, in fact, it was like the cop, this was planted evidence, and then you're going to go to jail or whatever. Maybe that's the plot of the film. Don't know yet. And that's also kind of like in Kick-Ass, the Big Daddy character. He was a cop, and then the guy framed him. So that's a bit of a trope. So let's see. We have a corrupt police chief. I want to kind of speed things up here because I want to get this log line out and not have this video be too long. So we'll pick up the pace. So we can have a corrupt police chief, once his supervisor, now involved in dubious activities that could further tarnish the reputation. It could be a combination of these. A shady figure feeding the detective false information, a criminal mastermind, an old nemesis trying to exact revenge, skeptical media. It could be a combination of all these or just a single one, depending on what you want to do, how long you want your story to be, right? As long as you have a beginning, a middle, and an end, you got a story. You can make that in 5 pages, 50, 100, 1,000. And it's just how much extra detail and how many extra stories and kind of characters you want to throw in there. And there's different protagonists, lots of ensemble casts, right? They have many protagonists. Think Ocean's 11. They all have their own individual goals, dreams, and everything, and fears, and all that. Just like we all do. So just keep that in mind as you go. You don't have to get too locked into these ideas. This video is for the new screenwriter who's just like, I don't even know where to begin crafting a story, plus a little ChatGPT brainstorming stuff on top of it. So if you already know this stuff, sorry for talking about it to death, but for people that don't know, I really want to hammer down, these are just like building blocks. We can throw them out as we go or keep them because we like them, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go with inner demons. That sounds great. Combination of, okay, I think we're going to try a little fancy stuff. And so we've got some compelling conflicts. I want to do a combination of 1, 2, and 1, 2, 8, and 9. From here, let's generate a list of 10 possible character arcs or transformations that the protagonist could undergo. And see, look, we can do lots of things. And let's see how this looks. All right, and then these are gonna be like his journey, right? I mentioned in a previous video that like a lot of times with like, if you're doing like a script reader kind of gig, those people read screenplays day in, day out. Just all day. That's their job. And they look for certain things and they want to make sure that there's certain, story elements. But the big thing they're looking for is this transformation, right? So you want to make sure that you have a good transformation. A lot of story, really, this is the core of it. Like, is he going to be overcoming self-doubt? Is he going to be going from isolation to connection, right? Does he start the story isolated with a damaged reputation but slowly rebuilds it and trust with his former colleagues? Not so much. From despair to hope. And you can take this the other way, right? You can make kind of a downer movie and where it goes from hope to despair, but and just do it in like a satisfying way, because life ain't all, peaches and cream. So sometimes it does end up badly for our hero. And you can also do all kinds of stuff like villain to hero. These are not all of them. So I would recommend, if this is intriguing to you, to get a copy of Save the Cat and The Writer's Journey, or The Hero with 1,000 Faces, if you want to just delve further into like story elements, and if you want to delve further into like screenwriting format specifically and how to like do that, The Essentials of Screenwriting by I believe Richard Walter. I really like that book, and you can find videos of his on YouTube where he'll just talk about screenwriting. They're really good. I'd recommend. But let's get back to the topic at hand. From despair to hope, learning to trust, from cynic to believer. That looks intriguing to me. Learning to forgive himself, that looks cool. As he delves into the case, he's tarnished his reputation. The detective learns to forgive himself for past mistakes. Well, he didn't really make a mistake. I want it to be, here we go, from pariah to hero. The detective starts as a pariah, blamed for a high-profile case gone wrong, but by the end of the story, he proves his worth and becomes a hero in the eyes of the public. Okay, and we'll do a mix of 7 and 9. These look great. A combination of 7 and 9. Okay, and from here, we've got all our elements, right? I'm pretty sure. So what we're going to do now is we're going to tell it to craft us a log line with all the options that we've selected. And it's going to give us just a basic idea of like what this story is, in a sentence or two, going to be about. And then we can use this to kind of like expand on. We can give this guy a name. A disgraced retired police detective. Okay, why was he disgraced? When did he retire? And then he's obsessed with the case that ruined his reputation. What was the case? Who did that involve? Is that our antagonist? What is this antagonist's backstory? And this is how you can just start to expand it, you see? And so now we figure out those elements, and now he's drawn back into the world of crime when new evidence surfaces. Well, we're gonna figure out what the other stuff is before we know what the new evidence is, or maybe we don't. Maybe we already have like a crime idea like in mind. We can do this out of order, and you can fill in everything you want and then just start to write from there. And that's a great thing about writing, is there's rules, and I do air quotes when I do that, but you can ignore them or use them as they are convenient to you. I remember the first time I read The Writer's Journey is I was at like an impasse in my writing, and my teacher gave it to me because we were supposed to we had various options of books to read, and then we'd have to like explain them to the class. It's a great way to teach, and my screenwriting teacher is one of the best teachers I've ever had. And I remember after I finished the book and I went back in, and the one phrase that I kept saying is like, this is the keys to the kingdom. And for a while it was really useful to me, but and it still is to this day. I mean, I use it, but I'm not like constrained by it, where sometimes at first people, when they hear these ideas that like, well, if there's only 10 stories and there's these different archetypes, are like, well, my idea can't be boiled down into these. And nobody's really saying that like you're just like, we're all just copying like this basic thing. It's just that there's elements and there's complexity and simplicity that can be found in a story all along the way, and you can expand it or bring it down depending on how you want to present it, right? Like if you're presenting it in the fullest form, well, you would want to write a full screenplay, get people, film, actors, director, cinematographer, and film that and then present that, let that film speak for itself. But if you're in the process of trying to get that film made and trying to get people excited and to join your team, like let's say you're a beginner in the filmmaking, well, a really good log line that intrigues somebody can be very helpful. And further into this, let's just read the log line straight up and then I'll break it down. So a disgraced retired police detective obsessed with the case that ruined his reputation is drawn back into the world of crime when new evidence resurfaces. As he uncovers a web of corruption reaching from ambitious prosecutors to a shadowy organization, he must balance his obsession with redemption and the need to regain his personal life, ultimately transforming from a pariah to a hero in the public eye. Okay, that's very vague, but as we started going, we'll add to this, and I don't want to do that in this video. Basically, what we've done here is created a compelling narrative setup with the help of ChatGPT, and from here we can create additional character templates with archetypes found in the writer's journey, like I said, and add additional plot points until we have a fully fleshed out treatment, which is like the full story, but not in screenwriting format. We just write down everything that's essentially going to happen, who's in it, what their motivations are, and it's kind of like a master thing you can look at. And sometimes I write treatments first, sometimes I don't write them at all. I'm also one of those guys that once I get the treatment sorted, I'll go and break it into the beat sheet, and I do that like on my wall, on a poster, on a board, and I put note cards on it, and I just make sure I hit every bit of the beat sheet. But we'll get into that as we go. Right now, we're just making sure that you have this. And often, as you write, a story will take on a life of its own. So don't feel too constrained by the log line. It can be used as kind of like a jumping off point and a way of quickly pitching your idea to someone, like I said. It can always be adjusted to fit what the story turns into, right? And I just want to add one more thought. In this video, we've been talking a lot about a dude with a problem structure, which is just one of many. And it really is, I think, a good starting point for a lot of screenwriters. But as you progress in your screenwriting journey, you'll find that stories can often encompass elements of different structures. So going in and learning like a bunch of different structures is useful. And Save the Cat it'll break it down chapter by chapter, and it'll go through and explain all this. But let's take Dune, for example. You could argue that it's both a dude with a problem story and a Golden Fleece story. And the Golden Fleece I won't break down too much, but let's just break down Dune. You got your protagonist, which is Paul. He's definitely a guy with a problem. His family is betrayed, and he's thrust into a power struggle on an unfamiliar and hostile planet. This aligns with Dude with a Problem structure really well. You could say, hey, Dune is a dude with a problem movie. However, it also incorporates elements of the Golden Fleece structure, right? So Paul embarks on a quest to survive and lead the native Fremen by seeking out the metaphorical fleece of freedom. And the Golden Fleece is a very old story. Point is, while we use, writers will often use stuff like Dude with a Problem or Golden Fleece as a guiding framework or a way to describe a project retrospectively, don't be afraid to mix and match and experiment as your story requires. And as you evolve, kind of like as a screenwriter or a writer, storyteller, whatever you want to call yourself, you'll find that the best stories often kind of like defy being easily like put into categories, or they can fall into multiple categories, or but they all do have elements of these structures, because this helps with pacing. And I'm sorry to get too off topic and have the video run too long, but that seems like a pretty good place to kind of wrap it here today. Next video, what we'll do is we'll take this logline, we'll start to add details, additional characters, obstacles, mentor, stuff like that, to kind of give the story more life and make it less vague, and it'll start to take form and not just be like a basic log line, but something where if we present that line to somebody and describe our movie, that it would make them want to ask us more questions, and we would have all that information readily available to give to them, because we've also crafted the treatment and we have a screenplay and everything by the end of this, because we're going to turn this into either the first episode of something or a feature-length film, whichever you guys prefer, whichever seems to fit the story the best, right? You want to make sure that you kind of let the story tell itself. I think you can keep drafting and keep expanding and adding on and doing stuff like that. You know, don't force stuff to go too long if you don't need to, is my thing. We'll wrap it up there, but let me know in the comments if you have a favorite Dude with a Problem movie, or if you don't like, you know, using this kind of structure. If you're more of a just, I get going and I write, I've got the idea from the start. I do all different kinds of writing. So sometimes I'll just be like, okay, I've got this really strong idea for a villain. I'll just kind of go from there. Or I have a really good idea for like the world, but I'm not sure who the hero or the villain are, you know? You can play around with this and just mess around to your heart's content, you know? And make sure that you give yourself the freedom to like make some mistakes too when you're learning to write. Don't be afraid, especially as you're doing with ChatGPT. Don't be afraid to get some weird stuff or experiment, because you never know. You might just write the most like some groundbreaking stuff. And then don't forget as well to practice crafting your own log lines using the methods we discussed. Whether it's with ChatGPT or just in person, you're like, hey, I got this, whatever, you know, just write it out. That's how I used to do it, right? So happy writing, and thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed the video, remember to like, share, and subscribe to follow along on our screenwriting journey. And until next time. All right, have a good one.